Lead us in the invocation. Thank you.
Thank you, members of council, for giving me the honor of opening this session. Shall we pray? And Father God, I just ask your blessing upon this meeting. I ask there to be peace and harmony that reigns through this whole session. I ask you to give the council members the wisdom and the understanding to make the decisions that are correct for Kingman and Mohave County, Father. And Father, most of all, I just ask you to keep everyone here at peace. And so, Father, we thank you right now, and we give you all the honor, glory, and praise for what's going to take place in this council meeting. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to ask Supervisor Gary Watson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
You follow me in the pledge, please. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do you have Supervisor Johnson on the phone?
Supervisor Johnson, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
And Supervisor Moss? All righty. May I have a motion to call for an executive session to be held May 18th, 2015 at 9:30 a.m. or at the conclusion of the regular meeting, whichever is later, for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03, subsection A3 and 4, to discuss items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
So moved.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to official business to come before the board. Item number 1, discussion and pending or contemplated litigation claims and demands. Attorney Ekstrom, do we have anything?
At this time, thank you.
All right, item number 2, committee and/or legislative reports. Supervisor Johnson, do you have anything this morning?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Watson
Nothing this morning.
and Supervisor Angus.
I just want to take a moment, thank you. I just want to take a moment to express my thanks to Arizona Game and Fish for bringing their commission meeting to Bullhead City this weekend. It was very, very good. They had their business meeting all day on Friday, and then a community forum on Saturday where presentations were presented to the community about projects that Arizona Game and Fish is working on with Mohave County that they have done in the past and hopefully in the future. We have a very good working relationship with them and hope to see them back soon. That's it.
Alrighty, and then I just wanted to mention that I attended the Employee Health Fair last week here in Kingman, where there were over 200 people who attended taking advantage of free blood pressure checks, pedometers, wellness screenings, and information given out by 27 vendors. This volunteer employee-run operation was a great way to strive for a better health and wellness in our community, to improve physical health as well as the emotional and mental health of Mohave County employees. And I want to just take a moment to thank everyone on the Wellness Committee, the volunteers, and the vendors who made this a success. And I look forward to hearing about upcoming events and suggestions. And I understand this was also held in Lake Havasu City and Bullhead City. So that's all I have on that. Okay, do we have a county administrator's report?
I have nothing today, Madam Chairman.
Okay, may I have a motion for approval of the April 8th, 2015 Board of Supervisors special meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve the April 8th, 2015 Board of Supervisors special meeting minutes.
Second the motion?
Okay, we have a motion, a second, carries. Moving on then to the call.
You have to take a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor
Aye.
Aye.
and opposed? Okay, now we can move on to the call to the public. I have one person who has put in a request to speak, Mr. Ken Works. If you would make your way to the podium and please give us your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Ken Works. I live in 2250 Crystal Springs Road in Yucca, 86438. I just wanted to say a little bit about the TV. I had satellite for a while and I dropped it because I'd get home from work at 2:30 in the morning and there wouldn't be anything on but infomercials, and that was about it. So I decided just to drop the satellite, and I put up an antenna and started to watch the local offerings on the TV. The problem is I don't know which way to aim the antenna, don't know which devices are pointing in my direction, what the signal strength is on any of them, and what the channels that are available on them. I managed to point it at one that I got a fair signal out of, but I wasn't all that impressed with it, and I didn't watch it all that much. And then they went to digital, so I just quit watching TV altogether. I have turn it on once in a while to watch a CD, that's about it. But where I used to live, I found out the hard way that the way you paid for it was by antennas in your yard. My property had an antenna on it, and I was assessed for that. It was $12 a year. And then I brought in a camper that had an antenna on top of it, and my rates doubled, and that's how I found out about having being assessed for the antenna as opposed to being assessed, everyone being assessed for the same thing on their properties. And I thought that might be the way to go here to make everyone happy as far as the TV goes. I just wanted to suggest that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Works. That's the conclusion of those that wish to speak. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on a non-agendized item? Okay, seeing none, we will move on then to presentations. We have Mr. Bob Saul representing Stockton Hill Farms. He's going to be presenting us with some updates on his farming activities and water issues. So welcome, Mr. Sauls. I appreciate you being here this morning.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the chance to speak to you all, and thanks to the supervisors in Mohave County for making time. Would you like me to keep this to 10 minutes or so, or 15?
No, you just go ahead and give us your presentation. We're very interested.
Okay, great. And I'm here with Libby Lamb, who is our Chief Financial Officer of Stockton Hill Farms, and she's really the face here in Kingman. I think a lot of you are getting to know her as she circulates around. The purpose of this presentation is really just to tell you exactly who we are and what we're going to do. Our theme has been from the beginning, and Gary and Jean have been very helpful in helping us guide that theme, transparency. I know there's a long history here that goes back well before we were involved in terms of the Red Lake Basin and what's going on there. And we come in, I think, maybe at the tip of a missile is probably a good way to put it. And very happy to kind of come in at a point where we know exactly what we're going to do. I represent a group of investors, mostly public pension funds, who are interested in investing in farmland. And we saw this project, notwithstanding some of the issues surrounding it, as a very exciting project. It's probably the most exciting farmland project in the nation right now. This particular region, your Red Lake Basin, is a very unusual confluence of a lot of very beneficial circumstances for agriculture. And it's our intention to establish agriculture here in a sustainable way, long-term, create an agricultural community. I know there are a lot of the debates about what that means. The word sustainable gets bandied about quite a bit. It's hard to really define it. Our definition of it is best practices. When you're investing for institutions, you really have to use best practices. We're not in the business of shortcuts. We're not in the business of trying to jeopardize anybody's aquifer or their land base. We're in the business of doing the best agricultural practices that we can find. Some of our land will be organic. We're going to be using our water as efficiently as possible, and we're happy to be involved in this project. It is expensive. It's not easy to take desert bottom land and convert it to productive farmland takes a lot of money, and we are investing that money as we speak. In fact, right now, we're just preparing to take our second crop of alfalfa off of 2 sections that we planted, and hopefully some of that money that we've invested starts to come back to us at long last as we start to generate a little bit of revenue here. Red Lake Basin, you have high desert, very long growing season, very moderate temperatures. It's very beneficial for crops in terms of the options that you have with various crops, not to have temperature extremes that drop well below freezing and also get into the hundreds, and this high desert is very beneficial that way. These are new, very fertile soils. They have some pH issues. It's very high pH out there, and that needs to be mitigated when you're watering your ground. You need to bring that pH down for the crops to access nutrition in the soil as well as it can. But we're doing that. But these new soils, the basic fertility of new soils hasn't been drained out of them the way you see in places like California. You don't have nematode problems, which are little bugs in the soil that eat away at the roots of crops. It's very clean, virgin soil, and we tend to keep it as clean and virginal as we can. You've got a great transportation infrastructure here. I don't think I need to talk any more about that. Your Red Lake Basin's very well located in terms of both interstate highways and access to some of the major metropolitan areas. Flat topography, I can't tell you how important that is when you're farming and you want to put in drip irrigation, even pivots. You have to have a certain level of flatness to your topography, and if you go out there, there are subtle differences in topography, but it's a very flat topographical circumstance. This ecosystem, there's hardly anything you can't plant here. It's a very, you're not going to put in teak trees. You're not going to put in, tropical type crops, but anything that grows in a temperate zone is going to grow here. So once we get this going, once we've cranked up, there's going to be a lot of diversity to our crop selection. Gary and I have talked about that in terms of what those options are. There are many. To begin with, when you're starting with this virginal soil, you really have to put in nitrogen fixing crops to build up nitrogen in the soil. That's the one thing that's really lacking, and so that's where this alfalfa plan comes from, and the wheat plan. We put in a lot of wheat. Wheat acts as, it's really kind of a break-even crop, but it acts as a fertility and tilth building in the soil so that you end up with much better productivity on your alfalfa. Alfalfa is where you begin, it's not where you end. Alfalfa is a crop that is a great establishment crop, but eventually we'll end up with a much more diversified crop selection. Green is good. We are making progress. We have things growing in the desert now. We have 4,000 acres that have been planted. Most of that's in winter wheat, which is going to be harvested in late June, early July. And we also have a couple sections in alfalfa that we're actually harvesting, as I mentioned. It is a very exciting thing. I've been investing in agriculture and forestry for longer than I'd like to say, but I will say this is one of the more exciting projects, to take something where you really had a desert setting and turn it into a much more productive, at least in my opinion, productive use. It also, as we get going and we start to diversify our crop selection, we're going to be building more infrastructure. We're going to need to have places to store some of our vegetable crops as we get into those. We're going to start to have some permacrops like pistachios and almonds, and we're going to need to have ways to process that. So it's hard to see now because we're at a very rudimentary level, but if you jump ahead 5 or 6 years along Stockton Hill Road, you're going to have, notwithstanding building codes, et cetera, you're going to have a lot of productive assets that are going to be helping us process our crops and then transport them. It just makes a lot of sense to invest in your above ground infrastructure as well as once you've got the land base there. We have Libby on board. That's a huge thing for us. She's really coming down from Las Vegas 2 or 3 days a week, and she's been very helpful in terms of getting both the finances, our public relations. We have a lot of wood to chop. We understand that. We need to kind of make ourselves known in the community as both a transparent as well as a committed community member. We've been putting money to work in that effect. Libby can talk to you in more detail about some of the contributions we've made locally, and we will continue to do that. We have that in our budget. That's going to be part of what we do moving ahead. We are no longer attached to Kingman Farms, I'm happy to say, as our developer. That relationship ended on January 3rd, and I won't say any more about that other than say we're very happy to be taking wing on our own. We have started to talk to everybody local. We feel that we're starting to get familiar with the way Kingman works and the way Mohave County works and thinks, and we're trying to be as sensitive as we can to that. And eventually we'll get our website up. We're a little slow on that front, and we'll have more of an interactive relationship with the community that way. Larry Hancock of LKH Farming has replaced Kingman Farms as our developer. He has an exceptional reputation on both the state level. He's one of Arizona's biggest farming operations. He knows how to work in Arizona. He's very sensitive to some of the issues that I know the community's been dealing with in terms of dust, and I'll get to that in a minute, and also in terms of water. He's the one who's really encouraged us to both put wells in the ground that are efficient in terms of the infrastructure that surrounds them and sustainable long term. We are finding in our part of we call it the central part of the aquifer, exceptionally high quality water, which helps us to use less of it. It's complicated chemistry, but basically low sodium allows you not to have to water more than you have to, and that's good news, I think, in terms of the long-term sustainability here. As I said, we planted 4,000 acres. Our plan is to have 7,700 acres planted by this November. We are acquiring more land from Mr. Neal. We should probably close on those acres sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And those are adjacent to the acres that we already own, and we'll be moving out toward Stockton Hill Road and up to the west side of Stockton Hill Road over the next 2 years. This conversion process does not go quickly. It takes a lot to put these things into the ground to do it right. Doing it quickly, and I will not say any more about this, doing it quickly is not the way to go. It's a mistake. It creates lots of excess costs, and it, I think, gives a lot of auxiliary negatives to the community in terms of dust, the perception of wasted water, et cetera. And I think we fully intend to keep staying away from that and avoid that at all costs. This is our footprint. That map, I hope that's clear. The green is what we currently own, and the pink is what we will own in a couple of weeks. The total footprint is about 16,000 acres. The total plantable area will be about 12,000 acres total. We won't actually have that planted until 2017 or thereabouts. And once we do, I think we may block in a little bit in this section, but this is the area where we want to be. We want to be here for really, several reasons. One, we're far away from Kingman. I think the closer you get to Kingman, and in terms of competing for water, the disruption of agricultural processes, I think that becomes problematical. I think it's something we all understand. So staying away from the more populated areas is very helpful in terms of an agricultural operation. Number two, we don't want to be north. The further north you go, the more sodium the water becomes, and so we feel as though this is the sweet spot for agriculture in terms of the Red Lake Basin. So you're not going to see us. I mean, I think there are rumors of 50,000 acre behemoth farms sucking water out of the ground like nobody's business. That's not our plan. This is our footprint. We may block in around here to make the operation more efficient, but you're not going to find us moving south, and you're certainly not going to find us moving north. We're kind of where we want to be. A little bit on the water and irrigation. There's 5 studies I know of this aquifer. If you are familiar with topography in the Red Lake Basin, when you look at this, you'll see the 3 basins essentially. To the south is where we're located. You'll see Long Mountain there to the east. We own 3 sections on the far side of that, but for the most part, we're located around that southern part of this part of the aquifer. We, are finding that our drilling, we go down 250 or 300 feet, not very deep. And we are getting to water, and then we're finding excellent recharge in the water basin when we do our test pumping. When you drill a well, you get it operational, you test pump it, you see how quickly the recharge happens. And I will say the Arizona Water Department came out and visited us in December, and they gave us a report about several ways we could do things better. We've complied with all that. We're cooperating with their monitoring in terms of the recharge in the aquifer. They have meters set up, and we're doing everything we can to be cooperative on that front with the state. Some of the well recommendation options that they had for us to improve, we put those in place, and a lot of it is regulatory and was kind of not done in the past, and will be done moving forward in the future. At optimal levels, when we get these 12,000 acres planted, good number just to keep in mind is our water use will be somewhere between 60 and 70,000 acre feet per year. We estimate, and again, this is taking kind of the midpoint on many estimates, that in this particular part of the basin, you have about 15 million acre feet of water. It's very difficult to calculate what the recharge is. When you get rains the way you did last October, a lot of recharge happening there. The question becomes, and I think hydrologists have a lot of opinions on this, about what the recharge is in that aquifer. We can make estimates of 200 years, 250 years, 100 years in terms of the water use. A lot of it depends on the acres on top and how that water's used. Drip irrigation is a very efficient way to use water, and I think changes all those equations dramatically. I want to address the dust complaints directly. I know it's a concern. I know it's taken up a lot of your time. The dust complaints really began, I believe, on March 26th. We were farming on sections 19, 30, and 31, which are the only sections that are proximate by any measure to Valley Vista, and we stopped those operations on March 31st. We have some drip irrigation that'll be going in this coming month, but there's been no activity there in April. So I'd just like to say for the record that the only activity out there has been water trucks watering to keep the dust down. We haven't been running giant tractors. We haven't been raising dust clouds. We can document that. That's a fact. So I know the dust complaints are an issue. I just want to say that at least on those sections and what we've been doing, not our fault. I guess that's really where we are. I just want to emphasize that we are very open to questions about what our future plans are. I think I've laid it out. It's not going to be modified a lot. Again, as institutional investors, we have a plan and we stick to it. And if there's variation along the way, it's because we've had to adapt, but our intention is really best practices and really to commit ourselves to creating a sustainable farm community here. And what that means is we want to encourage people who are interested in farming to both understand what we're doing and to find a way to get involved. There are going to be a lot of peripheral investments that are going to be made around this that we're not going to make. There are going to be trucking firms. There are going to be folks who are going to be subcontracted out. We're already subcontracting out with a lot of Kingman residents to do some of this. So we're having an effect on the economy. I hope it's perceived as positive, and it continues to be perceived that way.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sauls.
Sure.
I just want to commend you for being open to my questions. I asked for a tour of your farm, and you were right there offering that tour, which I did take. You were open with answering all the questions that I had, and I do appreciate that. So another thing I wanted to mention was I suggested that Mr. Sauls put together this PowerPoint presentation so that not only the Board of Supervisors, but all of our citizens would kind of get an idea of what's going on out there, because there's so much misinformation that's being talked about and spread. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to get the facts out there as you present them and start on that level. So I appreciate you being here. And Ms. Libby, thank you for attending also. And I'd like you to be able to answer some questions if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, we'll start with Supervisor Johnson. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you tell me how many local people you employ?
I can't. Right now, here's what I can tell you is that number will increase. I think on the subcontract side, it's substantial. We have welders, cement pourers. There are a lot of folks doing a lot of things out there. With some of the main conversion components, for example, the putting in the drip irrigation, that's very specialized. That is not local. We have some local farmers and tractor drivers. But right now, there is a lot of contract labor that's coming in from the outside to do the specialized work. I think when we eventually settle down here on the conversion side and that specialty type labor is off the property, we'll be much more locally oriented in terms of our farming operation. We are subcontracting out the farming operation right now to LKH. They have their way of doing things. Some of it's local, some of it's not. But I can't tell you the numbers, but I will say that it'll be increasing over the next year or two.
You kind of skirted around the issue on the aquifer.
Yeah.
Did ADEQ or any of the people come up with a number for how much the aquifer is going to drop your pumping?
They haven't, and that is why they've got the monitoring meters out there. They want to measure what our part of the aquifer, how it's affected by our pumping. And what we're seeing right now is just that the wells that we're testing and the wells that we're drawing from as we get into the growing season are recharging right back to the level where they began very quickly. That's a good sign on the health of our part of the aquifer, and that's really all we know right now.
The crops you're using are pretty water intensive, especially almonds. I know they're looking at shutting those down in California. Where's your product going to be sold at? Is this going to be sold in the U.S. or are these going overseas?
It's going to be both. Right now, if you think of us for the next probably 2.5 years is primarily an alfalfa farm. Alfalfa, again, being a nitrogen fixer, getting the land prepped for more diversified crops like vegetables, et cetera. We're going to be shipping some of that overseas. We'll be shipping a lot of that to California dairy producers. I think our biggest export destination is going to be California, and especially when you see what's happening there, there's a certain desperation for that product. I would also say that there is a lot of, I would call it migration of California farmers away from the San Joaquin and other parts of the Central Valley, looking for alternative places to farm. So we're seeing a lot of that activity. We're not participating in it. There might be a time when we do things like lease out to a California carrot grower or something along those lines. But Right now, all of our product will be alfalfa generally for the next 2 years or so, and then we'll start to diversify. And most of that, and again, alfalfa is an international commodity. It will be going overseas. It'll be going into California. So a lot of it into Arizona dairies also.
You said in January that Mr. Rhodes is no longer a part of your operation. He owns no part of your company, or is not a shareholder?
Nope, that's not a fair characterization. He was his operation, Kingman Farms, was signed on as developer as part of the transaction we negotiated. We terminated that development agreement, and I won't go into details about why that's so, but we did. And Mr. Rhodes is a substantial minority partner in Stockton Hill Farms. And what the real important thing I think that everybody needs to understand is that we control the partnership, which means that there's not much input into the management decisions other than the ones that we provide.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Angus, do you have any questions?
I want to thank you for coming forward. This is the second time we've heard from your company, and I appreciate that. You had mentioned the first time that you're going to get more information out via a website. Mm-hmm. Do you have that website up and going?
We don't. It's a source of frustration for us, but we have our URL, and I can't remember what it is. But we'll get our website up.
And you'll let us know so we can get that out to the public when
Sure.
the time comes.
Will do.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Sure.
Thank you. Supervisor Watson.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Saul, for coming in today. Libby, thank you. I have a couple questions. The percentage of subsurface irrigation that you're going to try to attain, can you give us an idea of where you're headed with that?
Sure. So if we have, and I will say, I'm reluctant to be pinned down on
Sure.
numbers. Gene asked very much the same questions.
I'll give you a wide.
Yeah, good. Give me a wide berth on that. So we have 19 pivots up now, and 19 times 120 is roughly what we have in pivots. We're not putting up any more pivots here in the short term. Our drip is what we've contracted moving ahead. So if you think of 12,000 acres, and again, I'll give you, we may completely change our mind. You may see pivots right there on the frontage on Stockton Hill Road because somebody comes in as, the carrot farmer from California and decides that pivots is the way they want to go. That's unlikely, but somebody might decide if we lease out that they want to do pivots. But our plan is to keep those 19 pivots up, get their useful life out of them, get our alfalfa crops out, and then we'll reconsider those pivots. But everything moving forward, sections 27, 19, 30, 31, all of these, and 27, and then moving into Mr. Neal's land, that's planned and contracted to become drip irrigation.
Okay, thank you. It's very important to me because that process of going to subsurface irrigation is quite a reduction in the amount of water that's used.
At least half, probably 40% net.
Right. Thank you very much. And I noticed also that you're being monitored by voluntarily by the Arizona Department of Water Quality. How many wells are they monitoring for you?
It's more of a metering system where they're taking our old well holes, some of our old well holes that aren't pumping that much water, and they put meters in those well holes. We've said, they're your well holes, and those meters will be able to see how high, how low the aquifer goes. It'll provide, for us, it looks like we're being, good citizens, please do whatever you want, but it's also fascinating data because we'll get to see how the aquifer recharges in the off season. So the rains come in fall, we're not using any water, maybe minimal amounts of water in the wintertime, and to see what happens to that aquifer during that recharge period, will be very helpful for us, both in terms, I mean, we're going to sell this property someday. I'll be quite open about that. We're investors, and we'd love to hold it for 25 years. We probably won't hold it for 25 years, but when we go and try and sell it to, a Californian farmer who's been driven out of the valley, they're going to want to see that data also, get a sense for how healthy this aquifer is. And it's one thing that's very important. And first of all, Supervisor Johnson, I think, mentioned almonds. We don't have big almond plants. We have some almond plants. I agree, almonds, very water thirsty. I think that is going to become a very big issue in California, and they're going to have to deal with it. We know almonds grow well in the Red Lake Basin. We just don't know where they fit in the mix, but we're not going to become, an almond farming, farm. But it will be part of what we do. I think the misnomer here is that it's an aquifer. It is not an aquifer. It's really, if you look at all the maps, it's really 5 aquifers, and 2 of them, very crucial to Kingman, we're 10 miles from those aquifers. They all intertwine, they're all interlocked. I'm absolutely positive of that. The hydrologists will tell you that. But, our part of the aquifer is one of 5 sub-aquifers, and that's what we're monitoring, that's what we're drawing on, that's where the data will come from. I think, I'm really dancing along the edge of, but I do want to say that I think the history of the Red Lake Basin in the last, how many years has been really a fear-mongering one, in the sense that the representation that 40, 50,000 acres of farmland could be developed and would be developed in a manner where there were a lot of wells put into an aquifer. I think that that's just not true. It's not true anymore. I think, number one, there's sodium water that prevents that from happening, so that limits your footprint. Then you've got, proximity to flood zones. That limits your footprint. So I think what you're finding, and I'm going to say we're very happy with the acres we have, is that the footprint is substantially shrunken, and therefore the pressure on the sub-aquifers and the general aquifer is substantially less than is often represented. I mean, that's, should you trust me as a hydrologist? No. Should you trust me as sitting here as the farming, I'm conflicted in that opinion, but I think if you really dig into it, those are the facts. It's a much smaller farming footprint than was initially imagined.
Thank you. Just wanted to make a couple other comments. I'd like to thank you and Libby for your sponsorship in the 4-H. 4-H is very dear to me. A number of years ago, they put me in their Hall of Fame, so very close to that one. What will you be doing on a year-to-year basis with 4-H and FFA? Will you be bringing people out to the farm? Will you be teaching, hopefully, some of our youth the agricultural methods today and getting our youth involved?
So Libby would be better to speak to that, but I will say you start with money, which is where we've begun with some contributions to 4-H, and those will continue. I think what we've heard is both internships as well as supplying some feed is important. So we've heard what the 4-H groups want, and in terms of tours, that's the very easy thing to provide. I think going to a new level, a less superficial level than just money, providing some feed for the animals, and maybe and some internships. I think what we'd like, and I'm an idealist, and we'll see if we can get there, is once we've built this out and once we've diversified, alfalfa farming is never going to be a high employment, intense farming operation. You can farm alfalfa with on 12,000 acres with 16, 20 employees. When you get to the much more diversified, agricultural mix, then you start to need infrastructure that's going to, crank things up and it becomes much more intense. And that's where, the kid who's in 8th grade today and who stays interested and involved and entrepreneurial is going to start to have some ideas about how to plug himself into a more expanded farm, enterprise. I don't know what that is. Are they going to ultimately lease 100 acres of drip from us and put in their own operation? Are they going to set up a packing house and a refrigeration house? Are they going to, put together an alfalfa compression? There's a lot of different opportunities. I can't predict what that is, but I think if you go below just the superficial support of the community, that's where you end. It has to, just takes a while to ripen.
Sure, certainly. Well, I guess my last comment would be, I just want to say thank you for your presentation today, and good luck in the future. Hopefully you can be working with Mohave Community College and the community to further expand the knowledge, and it's very comforting, or more comforting to me to see the Arizona Department of Water Quality involved in your operation, and I know that as an investor, and having been in business for a number of years, that sustainability is going to be the key to your operation. So having seen what you've done so far, I feel more confident all the time that you folks will be a fine steward of that property, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess one last comment that I forgot to mention is that during the dust debacle, at the beginning of April, Larry Hancock, it's hard to underestimate his relationships, which go back 40 years with people in the state. And he went out there with the state inspector, showed the state inspector exactly what we were doing. State inspector's one tweak on our system was get another water truck. We bought that water truck within a week. And that is, I take no credit for it. I take credit only for having Larry on our team, but those relationships in terms of, historical ability to, deal with problems are very important. So Larry's a huge asset here.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Watson. I just have a couple questions, and you may have touched on this, but I'm sorry if you did and I didn't hear it, but do you have any recharge ponds, or is that something that you may put in, and would that be helpful?
We've looked at that, and so we looked at it in the early innings when we were out there. Right now we're reluctant to move a lot of dirt around, and for obvious reasons. There's both the dust concerns. It's expensive to create those recharge ponds appropriately. We think of them, instead of recharge ponds, we think of them really as reservoirs. I mean, they are recharge ponds because they're percolating, you're filling them percolating. So the answer is no plans. We've looked at it. We are not doing it now. The logical place to put in a recharge pond, and recharge pond is a mixed blessing too, because you get a lot of evaporation, and that's is it better for it to be going into crops and going into the ground in a green space or out in the open? And there's debate about that. I'm not an expert on it, but the logical place to put it would be on our pivot sections, where the pivot sections meet, where you don't have anything planted. That's really open area, and we haven't investigated it. So we're still, again, tinkering around with some of the ways that we're going to use every acre of ground. That's one possibility, but the answer is no. We don't have any don't have any plans now. Ask me the question in a year, and I'll have a better answer.
Okay, that's fair enough. I wanted to thank you for addressing the dust issue, because that has been a major complaint, and I understand that you can't control the dust that occurs outside of your farm, and I appreciate the fact that you ran out and bought that other water truck, and you're taking care of the dust problem on your farm. So I wish we could stop it altogether. I mean, it's a windy area. Dust has always been a problem, but, you know, if you will continue to keep that in mind when you do plow your fields, to water them down as quickly as you can. And the other thing I wanted to say was I appreciate what you've done for the Kingman area as far as supporting different groups and donations and stuff. Some of the questions that I frequently get is, what's in it for us? What's in it for Kingman? So maybe Libby or you could go over, you know, what's in the future for Kingman? Are we going to see farmers markets? Are you going to be able to sell your alfalfa to the local equestrian owners, the ranchers? Can you kind of give us a quick rundown of what's in it for us?
Yeah, so that's a big question and a complicated one. So I'll answer it the same way I answered the 4-H question. In 5 years, you're going to have a lot of activity of a diverse nature out there. That is the way you get employment and auxiliary investment. I mean, this is going to sound silly, but even a convenience store on the way down to where everybody shops, which there's no reason to do that now because there aren't enough bodies out there to support that kind of activity. But you're eventually going to have commercial activity that surrounds, another good example, or a good example is, if you have a packing house for vegetables, let's say you're growing, I've seen this in other places where we've operated, carrots and, you know, potatoes, or somebody specializes in sweet corn, and or even if you do pistachios and almonds and you need to package those up, those are big businesses, or they're capital intensive businesses, employment intensive businesses. What's really in this for Kingman is an employment picture that expands gradually over time to become something substantial in a region, in a geography where it really isn't substantial now in terms of employment. That's the big picture outcome. I think short term here, I mean, we'll sell alfalfa who anybody wants to buy it. And so in terms of local horse farmers, and I will tell you that we're all about goodwill. So if there's a discount, you know, we'll provide that discount. Libby hates for me to say that, but we would do that. So that kind of thing is not a big deal for us. When we have 12,000 acres, what we're really trying to do is get to the point where everything's developed, got adequate water, we've got a drip irrigation in the ground. One of the great benefits of drip irrigation, besides the fact that it's water, you know, efficient, is that you control each 15-acre block in there. You could have one thing growing in one 15-acre block, another thing growing in another 15-acre block, so that the breadth of diversity for someone who wants to come in and lease something on a small basis to create ultimately enough diversity so you have a farmer's market, that's a possibility with drip irrigation. It's not a possibility with pivots. Pivots are, you know, mass commodity production facilities, if you will. Drip provides you with a lot more opportunity to have that diversification. So that's not avoiding the question. What I'm really just trying to say is it's a wait and see operation, and really the benefits are ways out there. We're investing a lot of money here to get to the point where we've got the opportunity to do a lot of interesting things.
Okay, and then my last and final question, because it's one that's asked me a lot, is whether or not you will be using immigrant workers to work the fields. If that seems to be a big concern of my constituents, and so I just wanted to put that out there and have you address that quickly.
Yeah, so transparency is what we're all about. I mean, if you go out and look on our tractors that are doing a lot of the work, not all the work, but some of the work, we have immigrant labor out there, all, you know, legally documented, the circumstance of managing their residency. Is it a low wage? Yes. Is it efficient? Yes. And are they well trained? Yes. Are they well taken care of? Yes. So there are two sides of this coin. immigrant labor. Are we doing it the right way? The answer is yes, we're doing it the right way. Is it a long-term a way of operating as we move ahead? Probably not. This is where it's hard for everyone to keep in mind that we're in this phase, which is going to last 2.5 years of conversion. So most of our services out there are contracted to external operators who have the expertise and a way of operating. We contract with them. We're not their bosses. Beyond the fact that we can decide whether to fire them or hire them. But their contract labor and their use of immigration labor is their own business, and we're not going to interfere with that. When we gain full control of the farm, once we've got it converted and we don't have subcontractors, our intention, as I said from the beginning, is to really build the local economy and build local labor force. The 4-H, et cetera, is in the community college is a self-serving support mechanism. We want people locally. It's beyond subcontract things like welding, cement, et cetera. We don't have that base here yet. It will develop over time, and it's an if you build it, they will come type of circumstance. So we're still in that conundrum. We'll get out of it.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in and sharing all this information with us, and I certainly appreciate you being a friendly neighbor, and I wish you luck, and I appreciate you being concerned and being cautious with our water and our aquifers, so.
Well, appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all, and if I get invited back, I'll show up. I don't mind talking, as you can tell.
I can see that, thank you, and you do that quite well, so thank you, Mr. Sauls. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted on by one motion unless one of the supervisors or any of the supervisors want to pull an agenda item. So starting from my right, Supervisor Angus, do you want anything pulled from the agenda?
Item 17.
Okay, Supervisor Watson
I have none.
and Supervisor Johnson.
13.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 5 through 40 minus items 13 and 17.
Okay, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to item number 13.
Motion for discussion, Madam Chair?
Second.
Okay, Supervisor Johnson, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can IT pull up the slides?
What does he want?
What I would like to do is continue this until the next meeting and direct staff to investigate the legislation that enables this and advise whether it is just a preferential bidder and if we can accept a lower bidder. We pay all costs associated with the housing, electricity, and water. Do you have the slide in front of you now?
Yes, we have it.
You can take a look. I'm not sure which one you have, but if it's the RSA 15, you can see the gross sales. This is from the state. We're $15 million for last year. A little less than $5 million was what it cost for the purchases. Then when you get down to the expenses, they're over $7 million, leaving $2.6 million for the vendors, which I'm guessing are the blind people. The interesting statistic, if you look at the bottom, you'll see number of persons with visual disabilities employed, 3. Number of other persons with disability employed, 10. And the numbers having no disabilities are 236. If you can go back the other years, you have 1 person with visual disabilities, 3 with other, then you have 0 with visual disabilities, 4 with other. how this works is we're into a formula where government says we must use sight impaired people for our vendors, but that's not exactly what we do. The sight impaired people through the state hire regular vendors to perform the service, and then a portion of the money is given to the sight impaired people after the regular vendors make all their money. I just thought it would be worth our while to look at to see if we're still getting the best possible deal. I mean, if all things are equal, I have no problem using the sight impaired people, but it doesn't appear that it's benefiting very many sight impaired people. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
All righty, is there anyone from procurement that wants to speak to this? Thank you.
Madam Chair, Supervisors, and Buster Johnson, this program is, in 1936, I believe, they enacted the Shepard-Randolph Act, and at that time it was just for federal buildings where the vending operations were supposed to be instituted, but in 1974 they added all local, state, county buildings to be included as part of this. And it's in state statute that we're required. It says that we're to give them priority, and priority means basically that it's mandated according to what the state tells us. So while I understand Supervisor Johnson's concerns, these people, it's mandated that we go through the DES office, and procurement works very closely with their representative for this program. It's called the Business Enterprise Program, and we work very well with these people. Right now, I mean, I can look into further legislation with the county attorney's office, but I looked at it very closely, and I can't see where we can get out of it, because if we're going to have vending machines and we are a public building, then we are mandated by federal as well as state statute to have them be in charge of it. So,
Wow.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Johnson?
That's part of the reason I wanted the attorneys to look at it. She brings up some good points, but my prior employment with county government, which was still into the 80s, we had outside vendors, but the county was given a percentage back, cover costs of the building, the electricity, and the water, and with this contract, we get absolutely nothing back. I mean, if it's not something that really needs to be done immediately, I would still think we should look at it. And if there is a problem where we have 136 people and only 4 of them are visually impaired, maybe we need to take it up with our legislatures to look at how this program is being run.
yeah, I have no problem with tabling it till the future, because of currently the agreement that we have with the state goes through, I believe, into September, so we do have some time to look at it. So.
Okay, do you want to put that in the form of a motion, Supervisor Johnson?
Sure, Madam Chair. I would move to continue this to the next meeting and direct staff and the attorney's office to look at the procurement code to make sure that we have to use this service.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Going on to item 17, approve the use of Fund 205 HERF contingency funds on the upgraded replacement purchase of one new 2015 Ford F-550 crew cab with a 2 to 3 yard dump body, fold-down sides, and a 10K hitch, utilizing Procure AZ cooperative contract number ADSP 014063237 with PFVT, Peoria, Arizona, in the amount of $64,618.26, inclusive of tax, warranty, and delivery, on behalf of Public Works Department Fleet Services Division. Funding, if approved, will be sourced to 205-03-4300 HERF funds. Supervisor
Yeah,
Angus?
the reason I pulled this is, it's HERF money, and I just wanted to know what percentage of our HERF money goes to vehicles and things like that. Because as I look at the rest of the agenda, there's other vehicles, and, it's being funded by other places, and I just thought it would be interesting, and maybe our citizens would like to know about that, since HERF is always being discussed.
Director Olkowski. Thank
Good
you.
morning, Chairman Bishop, Supervisor Angus, and members of the board. I do apologize in advance. I do not have specific figures in front of me, but HERF vehicles in general are inclusive of special assigned vehicles, meaning that the Department of Public Works utilizes HERF funding to procure those vehicles and equipment that support our road operations and maintenance. And they're done so with HERF dollars, and they stay with HERF, meaning that they're not part of the general fleet motor pool. So in this instance, we had a situation where one of our vehicles, for some reason, caught fire and actually was destroyed, and we're aiming to replace it with an upgraded vehicle. We maintain, just in our roads division, 10 crew cabs, and we're aiming to position our fleet so that we have 5 vehicles which are an upgraded F550 or similar model with a 2 cubic yard dump. Just enables great efficiency with regard to being able to carry out regular routine work assignments. In general, HERF, getting to your question, Supervisor Angus, has approximately 40 vehicles throughout its 4 divisions. That's inclusive of our roads division, traffic control division for the maintenance of over 29,000 traffic control signs, equipment maintenance, and engineering. So those 40 vehicles, in general, and that's just a rough number, are fully supported by HERF, and they follow the county's vehicle replacement plan, which means we aim to replace them when they accrue about 6 years of use or 120,000 miles, whichever occurs first. Or actually, both have to occur.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, did you want to make a motion, or?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve item 17.
Second the motion.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes, and that concludes this portion of our meeting. We'll move on to the regular agenda. Item number 41, discussion of possible action reference adoption of the Board of Supervisor Resolution 2015-067, abandoning that portion of Tom Reed Road adjoining Lot 3 to 5, partial plat book 12, page 27, measuring 40 foot in width by 630 feet long, containing .58 acres more or less, and further approve the abandonment to be processed and rights-of-way purchased by the ARS Title 28, Chapter 20, Article 8, at no cost to Mohave County, located in the Golden Valley area of District 4, Mohave County, Arizona. Okay, I have several people signed up to speak on this item. I'll start alphabetically with Mr. Robert Jack, if you will approach the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Robert Jack, 3387 South Vivian, Golden Valley. I'm just here to basically explain to the board why I request the road abandonment, and this is the second attempt. So I did have some people come out and do some aerial drone of the building site that I'm trying to get with the road abandonment. So if I can.
Yes, go ahead.
So that's property. Oop. Well, this is Tom Reed Road in the yellow, and that's my building site. You can see that. Well, here's a large. Oop. So the yellow represents Tom Reed Road, and the green represents the building site, or the footprint. And I would also like to point out the number of people that were contacted as far as this abandonment. Public Works told me they notified Planning and Zoning, Tax Assessor, Mohave Sheriff's Department, and then 3 people were sent out letters as abutters, meaning myself, Joan T. Pike Trust, and BLM. And all these people have approved it. And last meeting was, there was a request for an easement from Unisource, which has since been removed. So if I feel that Unisource has looked at it and figured out there's never going to be any development to the north, and that's basically what I have to say. Oh, just in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacks. Next to speak, I have Mr. Jeff Stoddard. Mr. Stoddard. And of course, please state your name and address.
I'm Jeff Stoddard. I live at 3003 Tennessee, Golden Valley. I am vehemently opposed to 41. Supervisors and their colleagues, I do appreciate the concern and diligence you've shown in this matter. I'm not going to rehash the same arguments you've already heard, but there's a couple of points I'd like to make that I neglected to mention in the prior meetings. In 2010, Robert Jack initiated and succeeded in the abandonment of 1/2 mile of Tom Reed Road from Chemehuevi to Gatto Road. Now he wants to abandon the initial stage of Tom Reed Road to the north of Gatto, rendering the remaining 1/2 mile of Tom Reed cut off and inaccessible by any practical means. There's also a couple of testimonials from other neighbors in your folders regarding this. Tom Reed borders the wildlife refuge and is a favorite jumping off spot for nature lovers, hunters, and hikers. To basically privatize and remove Tom Reed from public domain seems short-sighted and selfish. I've got a couple pictures of myself on an ATV riding the exact spot of the proposed abandonment. I hope that this establishes that I do indeed use the roadway for enjoyment and access to the back of our property. As Mr. Latowski has pointed out, and I paraphrase him, public usage is public usage, be it ATV, foot traffic, or horseback. The only reason the adjoining landowner has not objected to the abandonment is that he's an out-of-stater who currently has the property up for sale. Whoever buys the property is going to be sorely disappointed when they discover they have no access to the back of their property. And we're talking about a substantial acreage. Okay, I meant to keep this simple. I had a meeting with our supervisor the other day, and she remarked on the complexity of the issue. Initially, I agreed with her, but now I think it comes down to one simple question. Why should Robert Jack be allowed to take over and appropriate for his own usage a publicly designated roadway and deny us access to our property simply because he wants the land for himself? And that's about it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Stoddard. Next, I have J.A. Woods. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Jim Woods, a local appraiser, 1880 Lucille Avenue. Mr. Jacks retained me to complete an appraisal on the subject area, which is the subject to abandonment. And in preparing that particular appraisal, I did visit the property and walked from one end to the other. I came to the conclusion that as far as real property, it has no value whatsoever other than for the adjacent landholder. And he has gotten an excavating firm to come in and look at the property as far as extension of the road. And their conclusion was that there would have to be an 80-foot additional layback across the rocky portion of that road. And I have a picture here. This is in the, one is a blow-up. The picture on the right is a blow-up of the picture on the left. But it's solid rock. It would require blasting. Unless there was a really strong reason to go further north, it's economically unfeasible to build that road. Any questions at all?
I have none. Any of the other supervisors want to address Mr. Wood? Okay, thank you very much. My next and last speaker is Anna. I won't even try to pronounce your last name. Anna, I'll let you do that when you approach the podium, please.
Hi, I'm Anna Zingowitz.
Thank you.
I live at 3003 South Tennessee Road, Golden Valley, 86413. I would just like to say that we've been using Tom Reed Road for the last 10 years. I'm a resident and to Golden Valley, and I feel like it's my right to be able to have access to the back. You would take away my physically me being able to get to Tom Reed Road by closing it. I cannot go up a mountainside. I can walk the spine of it. I am disabled, and that is taking away my right to my property. I mean, I just, even though it is rough a little bit, it's better than going up a mountain like this. You can go this way up a spine, but you can't go this way. It's very difficult for me, and I would just like to be able to get to my property. We do use it for camping. We do use it when the grandkids come. It is an easy place for us to go hiking, but yet close to home. And it is our property that we would like to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lukowski. Can you shed any light on this property and the abandonment of Tom Reed?
Yes, Chairman Bishop, members of the board, I believe we have some exhibits that we can pull up on the screen to show the specific condition of the property as well as the layout of the terrain. This is a topographic map which shows the abandonment in red as well as Gato Road, which is outlined there in the black highlighted. The section being contemplated is 630 feet long. It is completely adjacent to and immediately west of the property owned by Mr. Robert Jack. And this photo just shows a GIS map overview, including the adjacent property owners. State statute requires the process by which we followed this abandonment to notify the abutting and adjacent property owners. So that included the Pike property to the north of Mr. Robert Jack's property, of course, Mr. Robert Jack, the petitioner, as well as BLM, and all three entities responded back in the affirmative with regard to this action not creating an undue impact. This particular photo does show from the southernmost point on the abandonment, Tom Reed Road looking north. This is from the intersection of Tom Reed at Gato, so the first 630 feet is being contemplated for abandonment. And I'll follow up this photo with a second photo. This shows Walpi Road. This is at Mockingbird. This is the alignment of Walpi Road looking to the west. This would be the alternative access by which the previous speaker, Mr. Stoddard, would gain access to his property. In summary, Public Works, in recognizing the board's comments at the previous meeting, did touch base with the with Unisource Energy, and the Unisource Energy re-examined their comment on this abandonment and offered no objection, meaning that they will not require a 20-foot public utility easement as previously was communicated to us and presented to the board at the last meeting. So the resolution has been updated to remove that. And then I will close just in stating that this is a 40-foot easement. The section from Gato to Mohave was abandoned in 2010. This extends the abandonment essentially 630 feet further north. It is a 40-foot right-of-way that is available for public travel by many different modes. And while road development would be most challenging, the premise that the right-of-way, the dedicated right-of-way does serve public travel in all different facets of travel modes. And I'll be available for any questions.
The one question that I have, Gatto Road would remain the gateway to the wilderness area and would not be closed off if this abandonment is granted. Is that correct?
Chairman Bishop, that's absolutely correct, yes.
All right. Does anybody have any questions?
So that means that there is access for people? if
Yes,
they're
they-
not completely closed off?
It's my understanding they could access Gatto Road and go right into the wilderness area.
Chairman Bishop, Supervisor Angus, you are correct. The BLM lands could be accessed via Gato Road. However, BLM may have certain restrictions on the types of vehicle modes that may be used, namely off-highway vehicles may not be allowed on the BLM lands, whereas on Tom Reed Road, such would be permissible.
Okay. Supervisor Watson, do you have any questions?
No question.
Supervisor Johnson?
None, thank you.
All righty, I just have a comment. Tom Reed is a paper road and a mountainous terrain that separates Mr. Jack's private property from the Mount Nut Wilderness area. It's my understanding that was just confirmed that Unisource has withdrawn their request for utility easement, and the adjoining property owner, Mr. Pike, does not object, and BLM has no objection. So Gatto Road would still allow access to the Mount Nut Wilderness area for Mr. Stoddard to access the back portion of his property through the wilderness area. And he can also access, or I'm sorry, Mr. Stoddard, he could also access the wilderness area through the back of his property using Wallapai Drive, even though that would be understandably very difficult. Both access areas are very difficult. Mr. Jack would gain this 40-foot by 630-foot, which would provide an area large enough for a building pad for a proposed house. And it's not our job as a Board of Supervisors to determine when this proposed house, or if it's even built, but that's what he is asking for, the abandonment, so that he would be able to have this building pad. So as I've told Mr. Stoddard and Mr. Jack, I have spent an enormous amount of time studying maps and reading past testimony and the letters that were sent in from neighbors and concerned citizens. But I think, based on everything that I've gleaned in my meetings and walking it myself, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the abandonment of Tom Reed Road in this area.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I have a motion, second, one in opposition, motion passes. Okay, going on to item number 42, discussion of possible action reference revisions of the anti-littering ordinance number 2002-03 for the purpose of removing the 5-day discretionary or notice period. This was continued by the board on the March 16th and April 6th, 2015 meetings. Okay,
Motion for discussion?
okay, we have a motion for discussion.
Second.
Okay, Supervisor Watson.
I was not here at the last meeting, so you may have to fill me in a little bit, but I see we have Jay Sack here from the County Attorney's Office, and maybe he would like to address this.
As I said at the last meeting, I'd urge the board not to amend the anti-littering ordinance. There's a misconception about what it's designed to do. The state law that we already have is designed to punish the people who are caught littering. The county ordinance from 2002 was passed for a different purpose, and that was, it's designed for those people who are not caught littering. Just the litter appears somewhere it's not supposed to be. We give them 5 days notice, go get it. We don't care how it got there. It's your responsibility to come clean it up. So again, the county ordinance is for those people who are not caught littering. This proposed amendment would add an element of any act of littering by a litter generator. That's something we'd have to prove in court, that the litter generator did some affirmative act to cause the litter to be where it is, where it's not supposed to be. Again, it's a gun on the right hip, a gun on the left hip. The state statute is designed for your caught littering, gun on the right hip. Gun on the left hip is the county ordinance that says we're going to make it punishable for people who are not caught littering, but whose litter appears where it's not supposed to be. So again, I don't believe any amendment that's proposed so far would work in court to address a situation where somebody's garbage is found in the desert. You tell them, come get it, we found it, you got 5 days to go clean it up, we don't care how it got there, and that's what it's designed for, and it's worked very well to do that. So I'd ask the board not to amend the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Zach.
I have a question of Mr. Zach.
Supervisor Johnson.
How many people since 2002 have we prosecuted for littering?
Under the state statute, I don't have that number. It's not very many because most people don't litter in front of a police officer. They're not caught littering.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion then to have the 5-day discretionary period continue to remain within the anti-littering ordinance, to give them the ability for discretion. And my motion.
So your motion, just to make sure, your motion is to continue, not to change the ordinance, just to continue it as it is.
Right. I believe
Do we even have to make a motion to do that?
we would have to make a change. Is that correct, Mr. Zach?
Yes, you could change a portion of this imperative to have
The 5-day.
notice requirement, because that's what makes the crime, is not have a duty imposed to do it.
Right. Okay. Well, I just want to make sure in this motion that we are retaining that 5-day discretionary period.
Okay, so,
I have a question on that. I think we need both portions of the law to make this work. I think we need the 5-day discretionary notice period, but I also think with the criminal statute that we need to somehow attach the reward wording to the criminal statute so that people won't be misled about the reward. So if Mr. Jace can come up with some wording on that, that would kind of clarify it so that we don't have people turning in information and then allowing dumpers to clean it up and then no reward is issued. So I just need it, in my mind.
Before I address that, I mean, they may have some confusion. I was talking to Steve Makowski. The ordinance amended in the agenda items is not the one that was finally discussed by staff. So I'm not sure what the board thinks it has in front of it, but the form in the agenda packet is not the one that might work. This one would not work.
If I may.
yes.
With that, that's the reason why I wanted to make sure in the motion that the 5 days remain at your discretion.
If I could ask, maybe just continue this one more time to rework the wording to accommodate
Okay.
what I think your concerns are.
I'll withdraw
Withdraw your motion.
I'll
and-
withdraw my motion, and we'll need a withdrawal of the second.
I'll withdraw the second.
Then I'll make a motion to continue it for another meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to continue it for another meeting. Need a
I'll
second?
second that one.
Supervisor Angus has seconded. All those in
I have a
favor?
question, Madam Chair.
Yes, Supervisor Johnson.
This 5-day wait is kind of confusing to me because we're saying we're giving them a 5-day wait to clean up the mess, or we don't prosecute them. If we can prosecute them, what difference does it make if we give them the 5-day wait? Because we're giving them a 5-day wait and they tell us to pound sand, we can't do anything anyway, right?
It is my understanding if there's enough evidence to prosecute, there will not be given a 5-day discretionary notice, that they will be charged accordingly. The 5-day notice comes into play when there is not the evidence, and the idea is to get the trash cleaned up if there is no chance of prosecution. Am I right on that, Mr. Zach?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
My understanding.
So they would have two prongs. They could give the discretionary notice if the evidence was not present. If the evidence is there, they would go with the criminal code, the 13 criminal littering code.
Right.
And that was just confirmed by County Attorney Jay Sack. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 43, discussion of possible action reference approve adopting the position of the Mohave County Board of Supervisors that it is in the county's best interest to support the City of Kingman's application for TIGER, which stands for Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery, discretionary funds program for the Rancho Santa Fe Parkway traffic interchange, and authorize the chairman of the board to sign a letter of support. Supervisor Watson, this is under your name. You want to explain this?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Really not a lot of discussion necessary on this. This is supporting the City of Kingman's application for the TIGER grant, hoping that they would be awarded that grant. That's subject to our adopting our position on that. So I make a motion then to approve the adopting of the position of Mohave County Board of Supervisors that is in the county's best interest to support the City of Kingman's application for the TIGER grant, Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery. These are discretionary funds program for Rancho Santa Fe Parkway interchange, and authorize the chairman of the board to sign a letter of support.
I'll second that.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item, number 44, discussion of possible action reference approval of the new prisoner housing rates of $66.64 per day with a $61 booking fee effective July 1st, 2015. This is under Supervisor Moss's name, although he's not here. I see we have coming to the podium Mr. Hepler from OMB. Would you like to step up and make any comments?
Good morning, Madam Chairman and board members. As directed by the supervisors, we met with the county administrator and finance director and reviewed the jail per diem and looked at the model and adjusted it and took away depreciation. We used the model of OMB Circular A87, which is a cost principles for state, local, and Indian tribe governments of federal central service allocation plan that allows for direct and indirect allowable cost of services provided by a government unity or a centralized basis to the departments and agencies. And in that, what we looked at is using a allowance for revised equipment and building, and the Public Works came up with $1 million and $500 and some for O&M for the building. Also, we revised some of the central services charges and came up with the rate that is in front of you. And we also, the county administrator and I met with all three city managers and negotiated with them. And if this county administrator cares to add to that, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hepler. We may have questions later, so I do have one person that's requested to speak, Mr. Toby Cotter. Good morning.
Good morning, supervisors and staff. My name is Toby Cotter. I'm the city manager for Bullhead City. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you. Great job running the meeting, Supervisor.
Thank you.
I support this item and this change. The reconsideration is very much appreciated. I appreciate the county administrator taking the time to really delve into the facts with us and work through the numbers. Arriving at 6664 is fair and it's justifiable. Again, I appreciated meeting with Mike along with Charlie and John. With depreciation removed, the fee still includes $1 million in jail systems replacements. That's $1 million that would be set aside for fixing things like doors, chillers, roofs in the future. And, you know, we appreciate that because our citizens and all the citizens of the county can add to that. A lot different than the depreciation method that essentially we've disputed since 2011. The county is not subsidizing the cities with this fee. Essentially, it's a fair, transparent, and justifiable fee. And I certainly appreciate your reconsideration of the item and your working through this and sharing the numbers with us. And I appreciate Mike and the help that he's given so that we can better understand these numbers. So I hope you support the 6664 as I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Administrator Hendricks, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Madam Chairman, I'd just like to say and echo what Toby did. I appreciate the cities coming and meeting with us here in Kingman and going over the fees, and OMB did their masterful job with the numbers, and we could have taken two paths. We could have gone with the straight line depreciation that was originally proposed. We would have been capped at about 1.5% of the total depreciation. We chose to ask our public works people what would be a reasonable number to look at major component replacement charges and a more reasonable method of actually looking at the so-called depreciation. So with that, we $1 million figure. We also discussed that we didn't want to double tax the cities. We're paying for a consultant right now about $500,000 for taking care of all the components within the jail, you know, the computer systems and all the systems and janitorial is included in that. We indicated to the cities that, you know, that wasn't a fair charge to be charging them at this time. However, once the jail is, that isn't a fair charge to be charging them this time because it's currently being paid out of the quarter-cent sales tax. So it is being paid and it is being funded by another source. However, in 2016, at the end of that year, when we pay off the jail, we'll take another look at that $500,000, and we would intend to include that in the overall charge for the inmate charges for the cities. And thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the new prisoner housing rates of $66.64 per day with a $61 booking fee effective July 1st, 2015.
I'll second that.
Discussion, Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you. When I was first elected to the county, we were faced with housing our staff in condemned and unsafe buildings. And we've invested millions of dollars in bringing our buildings up to a safe standard. We have a formula that covers our costs and depreciation. With taxpayers' investment of $74 million, we have an obligation to protect this investment. We ask our staff to give us a fee schedule to recoup our costs. But before us is a proposal that does not do that. Any reduction for the cities, which are a small user of our jail, also affects our income from the state and the Fed. If we cut our costs, we risk having our jail go the same way as our previous holding facility in Kingman. Can also have the feds take another look at us. For those who don't remember, we were under federal direction for a lot of years. This cost taxpayers additional monies. Just to remind people that are listening, right now our major maintenance is $726 annually. Our utilities are $680,000, and our medical is over $2.5 million.
Obviously, I'm not in support of this reduction, and also worried that about the direction we're taking and not taking the professional advice we are receiving from our staff. This is the second time recently we have ignored our professional staff. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Johnson. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Well, certainly.
Oh.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, we need a second, and
I am that with authority. Let's get going.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Well, certainly.
Adjourned.
Slam it with authority.